Welcome, I'm Mr. Hutchings, and this is Mr. Hutchings History. Today is topic 5.1 of the AP World History program, the Enlightenment, from 1650 to 1900. Our AP themes will be governance, cultural developments and interactions, economic systems, and social interactions and organizations. The historical reasoning skills we'll focus on today will be causation and continuity and change over time. Except our own thoughts, there is nothing absolutely in power. That line comes from René Descartes, writing in the 17th century. At first glance, it sounds calm, even comforting. But in the world of kings, churches, and inherited authority, it was explosive. The Enlightenment was not a single event. It was a shift in how people believed truth, power, and society should work. And once those beliefs changed, the world that followed could not remain the same. This episode explores how Enlightenment ideas reshaped political, social, and economic thinking after 1750 and why those ideas became so revolutionary. The Enlightenment did not appear out of nowhere. It grew from two earlier movements: the Renaissance, which emphasized human potential and individual achievement, and the Scientific Revolution, which showed that nature followed discoverable laws. Thinkers began to ask a radical question. If nature is governed by laws, why shouldn't society be? This question lies at the heart of the Enlightenment and directly connects to the theme of cultural developments and interactions. Why would scientific thinking influence politics? Because science suggested the universe operated logically rather than by tradition or divine whim. Enlightenment thinkers applied this logic to government, arguing that political systems could be analyzed, improved, or replaced. One of the Enlightenment's foundations was empiricism, championed by Francis Bacon. Empiricism argued that knowledge comes from observation and experience, not inherited authority. Truth was something you tested, not something you accepted. This idea quietly undermined institutions like monarchy and the church, which relied on tradition rather than proof. Empiricism represents a key cause of Enlightenment thinking and a challenge to older ways of knowing. Why is empiricism threatening to traditional authority? Because it shifts authority from institutions to individuals. If people can test truth themselves, rulers and religious leaders lose their monopoly on knowledge. Few Enlightenment ideas mattered more than the social contract. Thomas Hobbes, writing during the English Civil War, argued that without government, life would be nasty, brutish, and short. People surrendered freedom to a strong ruler in exchange for order. John Locke disagreed. He believed humans were born with natural rights, life, liberty, and property, and that governments existed to protect those rights. If those governments failed, citizens had the right to revolt. Locke also argued that the human mind began as a tabula rasa, or blank slate, shaped by environment and an education rather than birth. Together, these ideas transformed how people understood political legitimacy. Why is Locke more revolutionary than Hobbes? Because Locke justified resistance. He argued that authority flows upward from the people, not downward from God or kings, an idea central to later revolutions and the theme of governance. By the 18th century, Enlightenment ideas spread beyond scholars to the public. A group of writers known as the philosophes included Voltaire, Montesquieu, and Rousseau. They used essays, plays, and satire to popularize new ideas. Montesquieu praised Britain's systems of checks and balances in their government, influencing the structure of the U.S. Constitution. Voltaire defended civil liberties and defended religious toleration, mocking injustice with his wit and irony. Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued that sovereignty rested in the general will of the people, inspiring later revolutionaries. These thinkers transformed political theory into political pressure. Why did Enlightenment ideas spread faster in this period? Because increased literacy, printing, and salons allowed ideas to circulate widely. Enlightenment thought became social, not just academic, a key shift in cultural interaction. The Enlightenment also reshaped economic thinking. In The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith challenged mercantilism. He argued that economies functioned best when governments practiced laissez-faire, leave alone, and allow markets to regulate themselves. Smith believed the invisible hand of supply and demand could produce prosperity for society as a whole. These ideas laid the foundation for capitalism, transforming global economic systems. Why would Enlightenment thinkers oppose heavy government control of the economy? Because they believed rational individuals pursuing self-interest would naturally create balance. This reflects Enlightenment faith in reason and natural order. Enlightenment thinkers did not necessarily reject God, but many redefined him. Deism described God as a watchmaker who set natural laws in motion but did not intervene. Moral truth could be discovered through reason, not revelation. Thinkers like Thomas Paine defended deism fiercely, arguing that organized religion often promoted intolerance and superstition. This shift reduced the church's influence without eliminating belief entirely. Why is deism a compromise between faith and reason? Because it preserves belief in God while rejecting religious authority. It reflects continuity in belief, but change in interpretation. As Enlightenment ideas spread, they inspired reform movements. Liberalism, advocating rights and constitutional government. Socialism, proposing collective ownership to address inequality. Conservatism, defending tradition and gradual change. Feminism, arguing for women's legal and educational equality. Abolition, seeking an end to slavery. German nationalism, promoting political unity and national identity. Indian nationalism, demanding self-rule under British imperialism. Egyptian nationalism, asserting sovereignty against European control. These movements show how ideas turned into action, connecting thought to reform and revolution. Why did Enlightenment ideas produce such different political movements? Because reason can be applied in multiple ways. Enlightenment principles inspired competing solutions to social problems, demonstrating continuity and change over time. The Enlightenment did not immediately overthrow kings or end inequality, but it did something more lasting. It taught people to question. Once people believed society could be analyzed, criticized, and redesigned, obedience was no longer automatic. That belief fueled revolutions, reforms, and resistance throughout the modern world. Why do ideas matter so much in history? Because ideas shape expectations. When people imagine a different future, they begin to demand it, and history changes. I'm Mr. Hutchings, and thank you for joining me for this episode of Mr. Hutchings History. And as always, continue to study history because it matters.